The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome Ray Chadwick. Ray, you're working, you're head of the Granite State Taxpayers. It must be a lot of interesting things going on now.
Oh, Carl, it's great to be here. There's a lot of exciting things going on. Let me give you, your viewers, a bit of a reprise. Granite State Taxpayers is the state's oldest statewide taxpayer advocacy group. Was founded in 1990 by Mel Thompson and George Lovejoy. Mel Thompson, the one made famous with the words, "Low taxes are the result of low spending." So basically, our mission is to inform, educate, and motivate taxpayers in the state of New Hampshire and lobby the legislature, for things that benefit them. So we've been doing that for, as I say, since 1990. We just passed our 30-year anniversary last year. So we deal with a variety of things, primarily at the state level. We don't dabble, or at least currently, with things at the municipal level. We try to deal with the legislature and deal with budget items, things that will impact taxpayers across the state. We also comment on things going on nationally as well, because they're going to impact us as taxpayers here. But there are a variety of excellent local taxpayer groups that also, deal with local issues. And there's some interesting issues coming up in Nashua. As you know, there's a big budget proposal. Now, I don't live in Nashua, so I'm not quite as close to it as you are. But it seems sort of breathtaking.
It is. They have too many things on the pot without a plan of getting income.
Well, and that's it. That's the first thing. Everybody, and this is why groups like ours exist, and Nashua taxpayer groups exist, because when you think about government spending, there's always interest groups. And they're always advocating for more neat stuff, and we need this. You should be doing that. You ought to pay for this, Mr. and Ms. Government. Well, they're very focused, and they go talk to representatives and things. And the taxpayers, it's a broad group. And typically, there's nobody standing up and saying, you're going to spread the cost to all the people of Nashua. Who stands for them? And every year, your tax bill goes up. You'll be happy to know there is a bill running through the House, at least. I don't know its exact status, which is trying to require a supermajority vote of any town council or city council before they do any change in accounting that would have the effect of putting their new budget under the tax cap. Okay. Because, and you guys know this, there's been a couple of things done. Yeah, I know. Well, this particular expense over here, it's not really part of the budget. It's a special case. So there's an attempt to sort of close that loophole, and I wish it all the best.
Well, I'm hoping about that one too.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of advocacy in Nashua also regarding let's get the schools open.
That's right.
Because that's another whole thing is that, we're all paying the same level of taxes, and at least in Bedford for months and months and months, things were all virtual. And then we're going to open the schools one day a week. So now we're getting back to more fully open. And if you look at the statistics of the coronavirus, I think it's like 85% of all of the deaths. Now, I'm not talking about hospitalizations, but all of the deaths have been in the cohort of people aged 70 and older. So when you run down and you look at things like teenagers, high schoolers, it's minuscule. It's like 0.25%.
Well, some of them get it, but without showing any kind of signs
Exactly.
of it.
That's the other interesting thing about this. Some people can get it and not even know it. And I hear people all the time, they're going, well, geez, last fall I had this horrible, whatever. I thought it was a cold, but maybe it was this. I don't know. Fortunately, we're now getting to the point where people are getting access to vaccines. And, hopefully this will abate. But the impact on it across the country, on our businesses, on the ability of people to earn livings, has been monstrous.
Right.
And it's been, I think, a balance between, okay, yeah, we know there's a risk, but on the other hand, life can't stop. I mean, people die from heart attacks every year, automobile crashes, et cetera. We don't stay at home because of that. Now, I recognize, and I'm not here complaining, so I'm just observing.
Mm-hmm.
When this started, nobody quite knew what it was.
Right.
And there wasn't any real data coming out of China. What we now know in the fullness of time is they spent almost a full month saying, oh, it can't be transmitted by humans.
Yeah.
Which is patently untrue.
Right.
Whether they knew it to be untrue, who knows? But what we now know is, yes, it could be. And there were a lot of early predictions of millions and millions and millions of deaths. Hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well,
that was because the older people were dying quickly, and
correct.
You're extrapolating that to everybody else, and it wasn't right.
Right.
But they didn't know that.
Yeah. And eventually, like I say, I understand an abundance of caution. And now, we're getting a handle on it. We're getting vaccines. It's sort of getting to be time to get back to a bigger degree of normalcy. And states are now doing that, even California. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Some people would say because the governor is under threat of being recalled. But New York as well. Fascinating how that happens when the governor is under criticism. But anyway, I think back to the question of taxpayers and what do we do? We're looking at now, the governor has just announced his new budget, his budget proposal actually. And it appears that our state finances are going to be in much better shape than we expected at the start of this, because there were predictions of some pretty heavy reductions in income through the various ways the state collects money. And fortunately, we're in a state where there's a whole variety of sources of income. So when any one
I think that's one of the
down,
nice things about the state of New Hampshire. There's a way of balancing the budget because you can't have the many different sources all go crazy at the same time.
Well, they typically don't. Yeah. And you get a place like California, which is very heavily weighted towards personal income tax receipts. Right. And if the economy goes down, people don't get bonuses, then they've got a huge problem. We have a whole variety. We looked at it one time. Actually, the state puts out reports on it. But fortunately, in the outcome of the coronavirus pandemic, rooms and meals income, we tax rooms and meals around 9%. That's down because people are traveling less.
Sure.
But the thing that is up is income coming from cigarette sales and liquor sales. And Massachusetts has done some things to ban certain types of cigarettes. So more people are coming up here, which is when anyone starts talking about why we ought to have a sales tax, tax-free New Hampshire is an important draw. Interest and dividends is still doing well because the stock market has done well. And that's how people make that kind of money. Business profits are down, but not down as far as everybody expected. So anyway, the governor's put out his budget. We were quite impressed with it. And then, asterisk, the devil is in the details. And the House budget committees are now going through the details. However, it's got a couple of refreshing things for taxpayers in it. It's proposing the initial year of a 5-year phase out of the interest and dividends taxes, because this is one of the primary income streams for retired people, elder people, and they can't afford to live here, so they all go to Florida where you don't tax these kinds of things. Many of our friends are now in Florida. It's like Bedford South, and so that's a welcome thing. And it sort of takes away that, we don't tax income. Oh, well, yeah, we really do, just this part. They're proposing the next phase of the drawdown of the business enterprise and business profits tax. And the other thing is to increase the threshold that will take close to 30,000 companies out of paying that.
Oh, really?
So if you look back to the benefit,
so these are smaller companies that don't have a...
right. There's a threshold under
Yeah.
which you don't pay.
Good.
And as with most taxes, and if you raise the threshold, then people who were just over the threshold are now under it. So the idea behind that is to make it easier for smaller businesses to prosper,
Yeah.
grow the economy, grow employment, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things, I think, are moving in a better direction. There's always the talk about, well, they're not giving money back to the towns. Well, it's not really true, because the budgets over the last several years all have significant chunks of money going back to towns and cities. Most people complain about it because they don't see that coming out in a reduction in property tax. But at least in town I'm familiar with, that's because a lot of it is getting spent at the town level or the school level. So it really, from a state standpoint, they're doing what is appropriate, in my opinion. Now, like I say, there's going to be some time while we sort out, well, actually the legislature sorts out what they like and don't like about the governor's proposal. But from a taxpayer standpoint, it was a pretty good start.
Well, the House has to get their opinion done by the end of the month, don't they?
I believe that's correct.
And then it goes over to the Senate, and they get a month to play with it.
And they all get together.
May is just
somehow by the end of June or start of June, it all has to be
done. Right.
Done. Somebody cooks in the pot. But so anyway, so that's, I think, a good thing. The economy does appear to be picking up across the country.
Yes.
I've been looking at some data. There's a guy named Steve Moore, who's an excellent economist.
Right.
And he puts together a sort of a daily briefing kind of thing, and he's been showing the numbers. And our unemployment nationally now, this is unemployed, looking for work, unemployed, is actually back down after the coronavirus craziness to the level it was in 2016 before former President Trump took office.
Oh.
So when people talk about, oh my God, we got to do this, the economy is tanking. No, it's not. Just leave us alone. Leave us alone so we can go about our business.
And there's a lot of things happening in the stock market. I mean, a lot of companies that are actually coming out and offering, going if their initial
IPOs, yeah.
But this technology is something that really has expanded quite a bit in the United States. And they're doing a variety of things. Again, the variety means that some of them are going to succeed.
Oh, sure, sure.
And we're going to develop, we're going to be living better.
Yeah, and I think actually it's fascinating. It's just in the last year was the 50th anniversary of the landing on last year before, I guess actually now, the first moon landing, which is a big deal to me because some of the experimental packages they left on the moon I actually work with. So personally, so I can tell my kids, yeah, look at the moon. I got stuff up there that I worked and helped assemble. But when you think about that technology, the whole Saturn V rocket was run by a computer. And every one of us have in our pocket now a computer that is almost 100,000 times more powerful than what got us to the moon and back. So when you look at that and all of the benefits of today's life, the amazing features in today's cars, you name it. So it's really all been a good thing, beneficial for people. And the main thing that concerns me is that degree of entrepreneurship, that degree of ability to have a good idea, sell it to people willing to pay for it, etc. It concerns me to have so many people in power that seem dismissive of or disrespectful of or antithetical to that whole capitalist process.
Right.
And my other concern, I mean, this is a national concern, but when I look at some of the things that I hear going on and people who are in power in Washington now saying, seems to be dismissive of those things. It seems to be we have to control those things, and it's not a positive thing for the future and success of the country, as I see it.
Well, I fully agree with you there. We don't want a control socialistic type of government. We want something where the people have a say and they know they have some control.
Right.
We don't want somebody telling us what to do, when to go to the bathroom or whatever, you know.
Or who could go in the bathroom, actually. Well, it's interesting because now we have one-party rule in Washington.
Right.
So, I think back to the last time we had one-party rule. Democrats had one-party rule, which was after the 2008 election.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, if you look back at some of the things they did some pretty amazing things. They nationalized student loans. Prior to that, it was mostly private. Now, all the taxpayers own it. Mm-hmm. And now today, they're talking about just wiping it out.
Yeah.
No, your student loan, we'll just absolve it. They nationalized 2 automobile companies.
Yeah.
And my other favorite, national health care, Obamacare. And my personal favorite, which was the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, where they nationalized school lunches. So it used to be the purview of your school board. Now there's a set menu that comes out of Oklahoma City, actually. Yeah. So the result of that was they got swept out in 2010. Massive wave election back to Republicans. Now we have one-party rule again, except it's in my opinion, they had tendencies of we're going to control everything then. Mm-hmm. Now they're overt. And I've looked at, to get back to one of our topics of interest in Granite State Taxpayer, which is voting laws. Mm-hmm. We've been advocates in this state for ending the practice where this state, New Hampshire, allowed residents of other states to vote here. Mm-hmm. They could explore a certain loophole to declare certain things. And in 2016, close to, 6,540 people from other states voted in this election, including, 2,240 from Massachusetts, a state where there are 3 Democrats for every registered Republican. And it's always fascinating to me that the ones suing to put that system back in place, Republicans finally ended it. There are bills in Concord today to reinstate that. And the reason they do it, because it offers, offers electoral advantage. If you bring 2,400 people from Mass and you think that that ratio of R's and D's, that means 1,100 of them are going to be throwing votes into the system here. And as for your viewers to recall, Kelly Ayotte lost her race by 1,000 votes. So I would argue that that's sort of why. And that's why they fight so hard to bring it back, even though it's unconstitutional by U.S. Supreme Court, by New Hampshire Supreme Court, by U.S. District Court. They keep trying it. And the latest thing to come out of Washington is not the latest, actually. It started back in May, one of the coronavirus bills put out by the House Democrats, who ran the House at the time and still do, was basically to take over voter laws throughout the country. So that, and this is now going to the U.S. Senate, even as we speak. And basically the Senate Democrats in Washington, Senate Democrats, are saying, well, we want some bipartisan on this. It's 50-50, and the vice president will tie break. But this is something that requires a 60 vote because of the filibuster. But keep in mind, getting rid of the filibuster only takes 51 votes because it's a Senate rule. And that's what they're threatening. They're going to get rid of it. I think it's 50-50. Maybe more that they might.
It depends how hard they pushed. I mean, they pushed a little bit hard on this last one that came through.
Yeah,
they really somehow satisfied the people who said they weren't going to vote for it. on the Democrat side. And
Right.
you got to watch how they're going to do for that and a couple of the labor laws that are coming through.
Oh, that's another
That's
whole
another
thing. I don't think we have time
that's
for
right.
that. We'd have to come back. But let me just
ahead.
let your viewers know what's in this
Right.
bill.
Okay.
We have same-day registrations here in New Hampshire, and that has certain pluses and minuses. This will implement it nationwide. This will end voter ID requirements. You won't have to offer voter ID. You can just sign something who you are.
Right.
This will end. This will provide unlimited absentee balloting. It will provide mail-out ballots, where you mail ballots to every name on the checklist,
Right.
including the dead ones and the ones that moved away. Unlimited ballot harvesting, which for those who don't know what that is, that's someone who walks through the nursing home or whatever and says, I'll help you fill out your ballot and I'll take it down. And the ones that they like get to go down there and the ones don't. That's
right.
pretty much how Democrats took over California 2 elections ago. So what this will pretty much do is bring in a regimen that will be almost impossible to uproot. And I'm sure that's why they're looking to do it. I mean, there's arguments where the bulk of this can indeed be constitutional. Some of it will, some of it won't. States are already lining up to fight back on these kinds of things, but it will basically take away what we consider important. My view is it's very simple. If you want elections with a certain degree of integrity, it's like you walk up, what's your name? Carl Seidel. Thank you, Carl.
Let's
Oh
see
yeah,
your
you're on the
picture.
checklist.
Yeah.
Show me some ID.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a ballot. Here you go. You take it over there, fill it out, and stick it in the machine. No handoffs, no nothing. We know who you are. As soon as you start replacing the human being voting
Right.
with a piece of paper. Oh, it's a piece of paper. Well, it says Carl voted. How do I know? How do I know?
Well, the other thing they have to watch out is all those areas who haven't cleaned their voting records.
Well, that's right.
There's people that have registration lists that are more than the number of people.
Of course. Because
people die, people move, they
Yeah.
don't clean them.
Yeah.
And that's a law that they're supposed to do now, but they ignore.
And this will prevent, by the way, this bill also prevents any such cleaning. So the goal of it is to throw all these ballots out there because you mail them to everybody there.
Yeah.
So for example, you get, students
Right.
that in this state historically have been given a right to vote in this state regardless of where they live, really. What we found, even though we passed a law saying you had to be a resident, if all you had to do for the students, the dorms are closed, so they're back at home, send a letter in saying I'm registered in the dorm, and they mail them a ballot anyway. So there's bills to clean that up. But so it's going to be an exciting time, I think, as we try to cope with some of the directions that the majorities in Washington are giving us, and it's a bit scary.
Yeah, it's going to be some kind of a revolt in a way if we have enough states that do it. The states have to.
Well, the only thing the states can do is band together and sue.
Right.
Hopefully take it to the Supreme Court. So anyway, we're sort of running out of time here, aren't we?
Well, we got a couple minutes
few
left
minutes
to
left.
go. I don't know what you like to cover, but I think you covered a lot of things that are important, and people should be getting involved in it. I think people have to be aware of these things.
I think that is exactly it. I think part of what has always concerned me is that people who believe in more government are always working away on it. People who believe on less, they have their own jobs, they have things. Those folks need to carve out a bit of time, get involved with this, and remember who the enemy is.
Right.
They're the ones trying to grow government. For those who want to get involved with us, our website is www.granitestate.taxpayers.org, and we put a lot of this information, we were complaining about this takeover election law.
People know how to find out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you have anything involved with these labor laws? The one that the right to work law is coming up again here in the state.
Yep.
And that's a big thing because there's a lot of people that really want that. But the federal government is trying to block that by coming up with their new pro-law.
Well, they've also, yes, they've passed that. That's passed the House. Now that's going to the Senate too, also subject to a filibuster if it's still there.
Right.
That would eliminate any of the 29 states, I think now, have right-to-work laws.
Right.
Basically allowing any worker to say, no, I don't want to join the union.
Right. And you can't fire them.
And you can't fire them.
For that.
This will eliminate that. And the worst part of it, it will also require or put in place something called, what do they call it now? Postcard voting, card check. And
which
the
allows
company will have to give the union the address of every employee, which is right now, it ends secret ballots for unions. So you'll have some guy knocking on your door, dude, sign this. So yeah, we support right to work. We support
we support
freedom.
the freedom. Yeah. It gets back to the whole thing on all of us.
Sure.
You got to listen to the people. They're going to be paying your salaries, guys. So you got to listen to how the.
Right.
But people, you really have to learn to find out about how these things are going on there and get it stopped as quickly as you can. Yeah. Because it is not what we want to be. We don't want to be a socialistic country where everybody is governed by a few people.
Yeah. If you really want to know where this is going, go watch. They're on, I think, Amazon Prime, the 3 Atlas Shrugged movies written by Ayn Rand back in the 50s. She was a socialist, sort of, here's the way the future looks.
Right.
Or read the book 1984.
There's a lot of things you'll find out.
Let's not let it happen.
Okay.
Well, Carl, it's always a pleasure.
It certainly is. And we're going to have you back sometime in May. We'll find out how the Senate's acting on some of this stuff
talk
now.
a little bit about the budget and a few other things. And by then, we'll see whether we still have a filibuster and
that's right.
Where the country's going.
Okay.
It's going to be fascinating.
Well, thank you very much. And everybody out there, please get out and vote in your elections for your towns now that are coming around at different times.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's an important place.
Right.
You know, that's where
it
money really gets spent, and you got to watch it all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Good to be here.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.